Welcome to 26. You think this series will go all the way up to 40 something, like my Minecraft did? I don't know. I had a hard time getting started this morning. How are you doing? There are several flaws in the way I have my site set up, and I kept thinking about, I don't have chapter descriptions, or I don't have very many well written descriptions, so I'm definitely going to try to improve upon that. But I am certainly not going to go back and watch all of my own videos and add details. So sorry, but there's seriously not one part of the Starry River of the Sky, that I want you guys to miss. And I should put descriptions in it so that if you want to review it, you'll be able to find it easier. That's only right? So eventually we'll take care of those things. And also, what else do I want to say about... Also, with as large as this education book is becoming, I'm thinking about doing like a whole bunch of children's books. Like, I'll do a children's story, then I will do Zen Master Foyan, and then I will do a few children's stories. I mean, I certainly don't have them picked out, but that way there'll be something to look at on my site. You know, right now there's just nothing here, and it's taking me a long time to read 20 minutes a day. I feel like I have about 30 minutes of psych up, prep time, get ready to do this, but I need to get more dedicated at reading and getting this done. Not for the sake of having it done, but for the sake of, I really would like to share some more of the things that will interest my granddaughter while she's a child. So we're going to play with the balances on this, and I think it would probably be a good idea to do a few books, children's books, to buffer all of this deeper stuff. Now, the real question, I don't know what my real question is. Stories to involve her as a child. So more of my children's storybooks, and how I'm going to do that, I don't know. Anyway, let's get to it. Huh. Okay. That is... I clearly didn't mark my stopping point the way I normally do, so I couldn't find my spot. Alright, 3 minutes of that. I think I got everything I wanted to say out. We gotta add descriptions. We have to buffer the place up with a lot of children's stories. And about whether or not to overlay fiction stories with Minecraft playing. But then again, if I do a series 3 children's books and then start the Zen education children's books and do it in that kind of order, then my whole site will look like a Minecraft. So I'm just not sure how to organize in my closet. And now, for the beginning of the reading. Besides, I'm sure you're very happy that you're short 5 minutes. Anyway. It's my Saturday. Or we could pretend it's Monday in Professor Land. It is interesting that Hans Talk in the social psychology of social movements succinctly makes a very similar observation. Most of us underestimate the extent to which extreme personalities can be the products of personal commitment. Clearly, we may have to alter a treasured concept of what commitment is. More usually, people tend to see commitment as something very personal, emanating from within. Psychological research would show that it can actually be engendered and maneuvered from without. So commitment can be engendered and maneuvered, which means engineered, from outside. In a study of the effect of forewarning on commitment, Keisler and Keisler gave a group of students an article to read, on a topic about which the students' opinions were known. Some of the students received a version of the article which had a footnote on page 1, drawing their attention to the fact that the content was designed to change their current opinion. Others had the footnote at the end of the article. The remainder had no footnote on their article at all. Afterwards, all these students, plus some others who had not even read the article, discussed their views on the topic concerned. Those who had been forewarned by reading the footnote before they read the article, and therefore knew their views were under attack, were the strongest in holding to their own original opinion. So Keisler says, forewarning of attack may strengthen commitment if the commitment is firm enough. This finding, borne out in many other independent researchers, by many other independent researchers, may perhaps be seen as the case of, sometimes we skip words. It's like our eyes get faster than our tongues. May perhaps be seen in the case of religious cult converts who are constantly warned of the dangers of being caught by a deprogrammer who might overturn their belief, thus strengthening the convert's resolve to hold firm to their faith in the face of any evil. Keisler makes 2 other points worthy of mention here. He found, in an experiment carried out with researchers Sana and DeSalvo, that if people committed themselves to attend to a certain number of sessions of a group and then discovered that their own views were rather at variance with those of the group. Whoa. I'm going too fast. I'm getting ahead. Reading is hard for me today, I suppose. That if people committed themselves to attend a certain number of sessions of a group and then discovered that their own views were at variance with those of that group, gradually their own views would grow closer to the group norm. The reason here being, not that the individuals concerned were frightened of seeming out of things, but that, because he had committed himself to spending time with the group, he had to justify that decision. More will be said of this in the next section. Keisler actually makes the comparison between this effect and the friendship that often grew up between POWs in their bad places and their warders. Prisoners. It was, after all, the warders that the prisoners were committed to it was them that the prisoners were committed to relate to for the immediate or even the longer term future, whereas other prisoners could disappear tomorrow. Finally, Kaiser comments on the fact that individuals seem to need to believe that their own actions are self-instigated. Whatever the circumstances, a deception which may well arise because of an attack on one's freedom. Kaiser reports, when one's environment is effectively controlled by outside forces, then acting as if one's behavior was really self-derived is one of the few alternatives left open. In my own experience, in military training camp for recruits, I have found the percentage of recruits displaying hyper-military type behavior quite large. That is, people behaved in a military fashion even when it was not demanded or suggested. He gives us an example: soldiers who regularly marched from their bunks to the bathroom, or who saluted other recruits. In behaving the same way in freer settings, one retains the perception of choice or self-responsibility in more prescribed situations. In fact, therefore, in rebellion against coerced behaviors, an individual may be likely to adopt that very behavior to extremes. To make believe it was his own, chosen by himself. In the Patty Hearst case, to be described in Chapter 7, one of the main objections to the claims that she had been brainwashed into acting with the revolutionary group that captured her was that she actually stayed true to the group's ideals for 16 months after the majority of the army had been killed and she herself was living apart from the rest. No one suggested that any mental process, such as Kaiser had just described, was the motivation for her actions. A need to believe, perhaps, that she had gone along with whatever had happened to her because such a lifestyle was really her own choice. The complexities of commitment and restrictions against induced commitment should not perhaps be too lightly dismissed in such a context. Alright. I'm having so much issue right now. So sad. Maybe I'll get better in the next video. Stay tuned. Resistant again. Resistance against the overt efforts of someone else to change one's opinion may lead to the very opinion change being sought, as Zimbardo shows. The idea, for the person attempting the influence, is to get the other to react against what he is being told, but to so arrange things that what the person is reacting against is in fact what he really believes. As Zimbardo puts it, reactants can be used in an ingenious way to get the person to disagree with statements that he or she would ordinarily agree with, and to agree with statements that were previously disagreed with. The would-be influencer makes statements such as, "You would have to agree that," or, "There is surely no question but," and the view he puts up is the view he is aiming to put down. I don't think I have any examples of that. Okay, and the view he puts up is the view he's aiming to put down. Like the atheists with the "take believe this, and this is how I'm going to knock it down." I think. Keep going. So, the committee member who wants the club outing to be arranged by train rather than by coach says, "Well, you must agree that coaches are a more pleasant way to travel. You can see the countryside." And the other committee member, who really prefers coach travel, may be stung to say, "Oh no, they are not," because he resents being cornered and having it implied that there is no room for opinion on the matter. Jack Bream, the author of Resistance Theory, describes it as follows. The perception that a communication is attempting to influence will tend to be seen as a threat to one's freedom to decide for oneself. Right. Here again, therefore, illusions of autonomy and self-motivation can lead people to... There's so many... We don't. I'm having a self-attack. Try to resist these. They're no good for you. I'm failing to just relax and read. I'm more worried about reading correctly. I'm more worried about the pacing of my reading or the sound of my canter. So, these things make it nearly impossible. Oh, let's talk about cognitive dissonance now. Haha! We were going to get to cognitive dissonance. Alright. So let me reread this last paragraph. Jack Bream, the author of Resistance Territory. Jack Bream, the author of Resistance Theory, describes it as follows. The perception that a communication is attempting to influence will tend to be seen as a threat to one's freedom to decide for oneself. Here again, therefore, illusions of autonomy and self-motivation can lead people to be most prey to the influence of others. Cognitive dissonance. Why should actions so often shape our attitudes rather than vice versa? Much may be explained by Lee and Fessinger's cognitive dissonance theory, whereby people tend to search for justifications to reduce the tension created by holding two inconsistent attitudes, or performing an act inconsistent with an attitude. On the simplest level, if a woman is choosing an evening dress and is undecided between a long blue one and a knee-length black one, whichever she eventually chooses, she will have to justify her choice to herself. She decides on the black one and tells herself that the blue one would have been impractical anyway. If she had chosen the blue one, she probably would convince herself that the black one wasn't dressy enough. She needs to reduce the tension caused by the fact that she liked both but could only have one. Therefore, one had to be more right than the other. That is cognitive dissonance, at its most basic and reasonable. But behavior based on the need to reduce dissonance can be far more subtle to detect and alarming in its outcome. Fessinger proved the point when he studied the effects of cognitive dissonance on the beliefs of a small religious cult. The leader, Mrs. Keach, claimed that she received messages from beings on another planet, and that she had been informed that earthquakes and flood would signal the end of the world on one day in December. But those who had been committed to Mrs. Keach would be saved. But those who had been committed to Mrs. Keach would be saved by a spaceship the night before. Oh my Lord, she's a prophet! She's a prophet again! Look at her! You know, Heaven's Gate. This is way before Heaven's Gate. Yet again, Denise Wynn, queen of her times. On the appointed night, the followers waited anxiously for the spaceship, and of course it didn't come. Fessinger was there. Fessinger was there? Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm freaking out again. Fessinger was there because he was interested to see how the devoted followers would cope with the tension that would result from having believed and committed themselves to the belief, and then being proved wrong. The group was highly upset when midnight came and went, with no sight of a spaceship. But then Miss Keach claimed to have received a message saying that the devotion of her and her followers had been sufficient to avert the impending disaster. The followers were then able to esteem Miss Keach again and continue their belief in her. Moreover, whereas before they had eschewed publicity, now they actively sought it in an effort to win more people over to their cause. If Mrs. Keach's followers had not heard the message, they would have had to see themselves as fools for believing her. They would have been of less worth as individuals. Therefore, whatever the belief, they would have seized upon any way to continue to hold it. That would satisfy their need for consistent behavior on their own part and for respecting themselves. In the same way, many devotees of spiritual healers who have been exposed as fakes continue to offer their faith and stick by the maligned hero, not because of any magnitude of spirit themselves, but because of the insupportable psychological consequences of accepting they had been duped. And we'll stop there for this time.